Education regular meeting for Monday, September 12th. Please all rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight, we're going to start off with an RPS performance of Imagine.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. You know the people today. You know the people. They say, dreamer. I hope someday you'll join us. See us one. Imagine no possession. I wonder if you care. No need for greed. You know the people. Daring. You dreamer. But I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us. 'Cause one.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
So I just
Can you
wanted, oh,
take a
sorry.
moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
I'm Teresa Silveri.
I'm Katie Estabrook. And I'm Laura Ayers.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the third time that we've had the benefit of hearing you perform, and each time it gets better and better. And over here on the left-hand side, or my left, is Josh Setti, who has a new teacher to RPS, who literally, first day on the job, I'm not even sure you were paid yet, Josh, but was at RPS, you wasn't paid yet, RPS Convocation on stage, leading not only this group, but we had just, it was such an exciting morning. I'll tell you all about it in just a minute, but leading a really, really motivating day with our theme Imagine. So we can't thank Josh enough, who had just literally just came on board. So that's. And you're going to hear more about Imagine in a little bit. But again, big thanks to Josh and big thanks to all of you. And Miss Gillette brought some lollipops to take with you, right, Miss Gillette? Okay, she already gave them out. Thank you, girls.
Thank you. I guess it's all downhill from there. Starting with public comment. Nobody's signed up. Do we have anybody here to make a public comment at this time of the evening? If no, there is another opportunity towards the end of the night as well. Move right into my chair report. Just a few items tonight. Shuffling of some committee assignments going forward. Curriculum committee stays as it was with Tina chairing, Amy, Sean, and Rachel. Negotiations committee stays as it was with me chairing, Tina, and Rachel. Policy committee is going to be updated. We have Rachel as chair, Selena, Tom, and now Divya is joining that committee. Strategic planning and advocacy is going to remain with Tina as chair, Selena and myself, and we're adding Tom Collin to that committee as well. And the budget, finance, and operations committee now has Sean McAvoy as chair, Liz Flogel, Amy, and Divya are now part of that committee going forward as well. Tonight, we will hear from the district on their priorities. Board goals are set every 2 years. We have ours set last year. We will look at them during our board retreat coming up in October to see if anything needs revision, making sure that our goals match up with the priorities set by the district. And one more thing before we go forward. I would entertain a motion, since this is a regular meeting, to change the order of action items, moving item D, district priorities, up to slot B, and moving school readiness down to slot D. Does anybody have such a motion? Motion. Thank you. Any second? All in favor? Okay, the agenda is revised. That's it for me.
All right. So thank you. And yes, what a way to start a Board of Education meeting. And it was actually the way in which we started our convocation. So we haven't been here since convocation, which I think was August 24th. And truly just a memorable event. Our theme this year, if you haven't figured it out, because it is on 4 screens, and there's a lanyard around my neck, and we had children singing the Imagine by John Lennon. That is our theme this year, and that's how we opened our school year. Our morning was filled with mascots. We had one from every school. We had to have one that was a duplicate for one school because we were a little short one mascot. But overall, just a great way, fun. It was certainly a celebration. Our teacher of the year, Jessica Margiata, I think we're all still laughing. She brought a real sentiment of what we know and love about the craft of teaching, while also bringing humor and everything that happens day to day in the life of a teacher. Truly just an inspiration for all of us. We had a student MC who's actually here tonight leading convocation, Lizzie, who did, again, a great job. She had the pleasure of hearing our students sing over the course of 2 or 3 days as well. We had students from each of our schools announcing our new teachers, including Josh, who left just a little while ago. We had a band of our resident faculty from the music department performing across all elements of convocation. We had our board vice chair speaking on behalf of the board, welcoming our faculty, reminding them of the work that they do with our students and how important that work is. We had another group of students sing A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman. And if you weren't crying from Imagine, you were certainly crying by the end of the presentation. And what I can say for sure, it was a celebratory tone and reminded us all of how amazing our public school in Ridgefield is and how amazing all of our faculty are. And it was great to highlight our teachers on that particular day. Then it was followed by a number of professional learning days, and from the feedback that I've received, it's been both meaningful and very targeted to the teacher's content area. So that was done over the course of, I think, 3 days after that. We opened school with transportation, having a few natural bumps as it does happen at the start of school year, but overall, I think we're finding our way. We currently have, you probably saw them if you drove in tonight, we have 2 vans that we will be doing some in-district and out-of-district transportation. One is up and running. But if you know anyone who loves to drive, and some amazing kids, we are still looking for a couple of part-time drivers. And we would really appreciate them coming to visit with us, visit our kids, and get our second van on the road, hopefully by early October. Facilities, it is a little bit of magic that happens between the day before school and school, that they are beaming, those floors are shining. I don't know exactly how it happens overnight, but the facilities department buttoned up the last few bits right before the start of school, and our schools were ready for our faculty and our students. We are almost fully staffed. I think I hired maybe my last person today for the high school. Hopefully that will be it for the year. So outside of a couple of van drivers and maybe some paraprofessional staff and some subs, I think we're in a pretty good place. But last but not least, I hear that Dr. Hanaway will be at the Dunk Tank on September 14th at 3 o'clock approximately. So if anyone wants to go out there and has a great pitch, 3 o'clock, ERMS, September 14th. And I think that's it for me.
That's 2 days from now?
That is approximately 2 days from now, 3 o'clock.
Next up, committee chairs. I know budget met this morning. Sean?
Right, this microphone thing. Yeah, we had a budget and finance committee meeting this morning. We went through last year's financials, finals, and this year's snapshot for this month. And we're updating with Jill a little bit of the cadence so we can get closer to the Board of Finance meetings so they can get more real-time information. So that shift should help a lot in our messaging. We'll review those later in the meeting.
Great, thanks. Any other committee chairs or Rachel?
So the policy committee will meet for the first time this school year on Monday, September 19th. I'm looking forward to a great meeting and a great start to the school year. And also an update from Active Connecticut Education Advisory Committee. Active Connecticut has a youth choir and a new session starts tomorrow. So if anyone is interested, they should go to www.actofct.org. Thank you.
Any other liaison reports?
CES had their first meeting of the year. They just talked about the start of school year, and what was interesting was many districts are facing teacher shortages, so I'm glad to hear we're not in that
We are
shape.
not.
And they're all were brainstorming ideas how to build workforce, so I'm glad to hear we're not there. And RPC, Sean.
Yep. There it is. So Ridgefield Prevention Council, we are meeting regularly. Year started for us. Last week was the second annual recovery vigil, very well attended at the library. Rudy came and said a few words, and it was very well done. It is Recovery Month. It is also Suicide Prevention Month, so Suicide Awareness Month. So these are important topics for us to keep in mind.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports? No? Okay, we can move on. And Dr. Greenwood, are you here to introduce Sam and Lizzie to us this evening?
Microphones, these are new to us. I'm just gonna lean in because I'm gonna lead the girls, but this is Lizzie
Nope.
Garson and Stan Verdejo, 2 of our amazing seniors, and they're here to represent throughout the year the RHS. Lizzie, I think, will be doing the lion's share of the work, but Sam's here for support and anytime Lizzie can't make it in. So we have something prepared for you, and you got it, girls.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see some familiar faces from Convocation. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lizzie Garson. I'm the student body president this year at Ridgefield High School. I've been the class president for my grade for the past 3 years, and I've absolutely loved being involved in the school and the community. So now let's get into what the high school has been up to the past few weeks. We started off with freshman orientation with a bang. The enthusiasm of our over 80 student leaders was absolutely contagious. It was the first time since my own freshman orientation where there was no mask mandate, and getting to see everyone's smiling faces walking into the building was really nice. Freshman orientation could not have been possible without our amazing student leaders and the amazing teachers, Miss Giulio, who's back there, and Miss Stewart, who were in charge of us all. Entering the building the next day with a full student body, it was clear that teachers and students were excited to be back without masks. Laughter and stories from the summer flooded the hallways. The first Friday back, we had a beach day fun Friday, where tropical shirts were worn and popsicles were enjoyed. We also started rolling out our new flex time last week. We were able to meet with teachers for extra help or enjoy enrichment activities that teachers had set up. We held our first student government meeting on Friday during flex time, where the enthusiasm was through the roof. Few grades are already planning who's going to win Spirit Week. Our first order of business was the freshman dance, which took place last Friday. I had the pleasure of going with Sam, and we had an absolute blast breaking it down on the dance floor. Huge shout out to all the teachers who came and made it a memorable night for all the freshmen who attended. Sports have been flourishing with cross country, soccer, field hockey, girls volleyball, and football practices and games daily. Everyone's looking forward to the first home football game this Friday on Tiger Hollow and seeing the Tigers Lair in full force. Yeah. Me and Sam did not plan this matching, by the way. I just want to say that.
We all wondered it, Lizzie.
Yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next up is NEAR.
Good evening. I'm Mary Ellen Foley. I'm the Vice President of Communications for NEAR. Thank you for having me, and it's good to see everyone back this school year. Some familiar faces and some new faces. It's just how our students feel on the first day of school, looking around, getting to know everyone. The first day of school and the anticipation of a new school year brings lots of feelings, but this year it seems to have brought the feeling of joy to everyone. We were able to have the back-to-school experience that we've been imagining about for the past couple years. Joy was felt throughout our district in the first few weeks of school. We launched our year with a very energetic and celebratory convocation. Building admins and PTAs across the district welcomed us into buildings with slideshows, songs, breakfast as we began our work together for the year ahead. And the best part of it all, when students entered our buildings, each student seemed truly happy to be there from grades K through 12, and we were thrilled to welcome them with all the possibilities of the school year ahead. NEAR leadership met late in the summer to establish our strategic goals for the year. We did begin working last year, working in partnership with the district to support the well-being of our teachers. We hope to build on that work this year to ensure all our members of the school community are as healthy as possible. We always are mindful that teachers' working conditions are also students' learning conditions. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the Board of Ed and our district administration, and look forward to a great year. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you. And PTA.
Fancy. Hey, everyone. Good evening. I know a lot of people, but not everyone. So my name is Angela Rice. I'm PTA Council co-president this year, along with Lynn Everdell. I think you'll probably see my face pretty often giving the reports. Lynn has another board that she serves on that often conflicts. So quick, I guess, little introduction is that I have a third grader at Branchville and a sixth grader at Eastridge. I also work part-time as a high school teacher at an online school. So sort of feet in many worlds there. The PTA Council in general just wants to say that we're really excited and looking forward to this year, looking forward to all the positive continued partnership that we've had with the district, and to supporting our students and our families and in whatever way that we can. As you are aware, we traditionally go through and give a brief update from all of our PTAs because everyone has exciting things to share, and I know it gets a bit long sometimes, so I'll try to keep it brief, but everyone is very, very busy, which is wonderful, and happily, as others have mentioned, kind of going back to a little bit of the way things were, so we have more to celebrate because there's more happening. So beginning with Barlow Mountain, we kicked off the year with the PTA treating the staff to a catered lunch from Genoa Pizza before school started. On the first day of school, their new mascot, Bobby the Bobcat, which, by the way, you guys totally stole our name, Barlow, if you're listening, because we've been Bob the Beaver for a few years. It's It's okay, Bobby and Bob can coexist.
So cute.
Bobby the Bobcat made an appearance at the end of the day as the kids went to dismissal. Last Friday, the PTA hosted a back-to-school bash with a DJ, activities by the fifth grade students and parents, and science demonstrations by Mad Science of Connecticut. At Farmingville, the board had its first meeting on the 6th, and their first general meeting will be this coming Wednesday. This coming Friday is their back-to-school picnic, and their scholastic book fair is at the end of the month. They're excited to have an e-wallet with donations for all the teachers to split and to get new books for the classrooms, including essentials. Fundraising this month for them includes pizza night with Planet Pizza, fall family photo shoots with a local photographer, and selling FES lawn signs and spiritware. They're also planning an informal parents' night out just for parents to gather and socialize. And they're running a sign up throughout the year for donations of drinks and snacks to keep the teachers' lounge stocked. At VP, the PTA held a back to school luncheon for their staff with a farmer's market theme, and they're holding an ice cream social this Thursday night. Branchville also hosted a luncheon to welcome teachers back to school and threw a back to school bash for parents and students with music, food and drink, and children's activities. They also decorated the building to welcome students back. And coming up later this month, they have a school picture day, new parent coffee to welcome families who are new to the area, and a fifth grade movie night. At East Ridge, spoiler alert, someone's getting dunked. It's always you, isn't it?
Someone's got to take it for the team.
Way to always be willing to raise your hand, Dr. Hanaway. So yes, they are. During their teacher PD days, they also treated the teachers to a bunch of treats and a survival kit. And the week was finished with Crazy Taco Mex food truck for lunch. On the first day of school, each student received a welcome back pencil, and their back to school bash is coming up on Wednesday with the dunk tank, which we heard about. Special guests, sitting in the hot seat, they mean the dunk tank, giant obstacle courses, climb the ladder, carnival games, and carnival concessions. They're really excited to announce that they have 316 PTA members, including 33 teachers and staff, which is awesome, and I think a huge boost for the middle school PTAs. So yay. And finally, I have Scotts Ridge. They hosted a back-to-school lunch on Friday the 26th, which was their first full one since COVID. Parents were able to contribute food again to the luncheon. The PTA provided sandwiches and wraps, and were able to generate a fair amount of teacher and staff PTA memberships. They've created a Venmo account, which a lot of the teachers are finding more helpful for signing up. So pro tip for the other PTAs, if anyone's listening, might be a good idea. And they're hosting a welcome back tea for all for all parents on September 30th. They have a brand new, fully stocked school spiritware store open online and have returned their school colors to yellow and blue. Go Rockets. That does it for me this evening. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on to approval of minutes, starting with June 13th. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the meeting on June 13th, 2022.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Amy? Any corrections, comments, adjustments? There being none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from June 13th? Selena, you're abstaining as you were not here? Correct, okay. Motion carries, are you abstaining as well, Divya, since you were not here? So, motion carries 7-0. Next, June 27th?
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the meeting on June 27th, 2022.
Second, Liz. Any corrections, amendments? Being none, all those in favor? Abstaining, you're abstaining? Motion carries 6-0. And the June 30th.
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the meeting on June 30th, 2022.
Second, Liz? Any corrections? All those in favor? 5. All those abstaining? Motion carries 5-0. And lastly, the minutes from August 2nd. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the meeting on August 2nd, 2022.
Second, Liz? Any corrections? All those in favor? 5? Abstains? Okay. Motion carries 5-0. And we can move on to the first of the discussion items, which is Ridgefield Imagines.
All right, so I can look at Corey. She is smiling cheek to cheek. I'm so excited. Yes, it is a fun one. But really, it's outside of all the logo and the merch and the fanfare. I think what makes this particular topic important is because it is the through line for all of our work. And while we kick it off in convocation, and yes, there's a lot of fun, and I forgot about the cheerleaders, and I forgot about, it was so good. But we're so much more than that. I said the students announcing the new teachers, but the teachers, imagining and all the videos and the reels and everything else, but it is so much more than all of that. And it's really about the work that we do with kids, alongside kids. So I know that Corey is incredibly excited because it really has been a process, because as you can imagine, no pun intended, the word imagine comes with a lot of understanding what that actually means, and bringing that from a thought to paper to pencil was not easy, and it came with a lot of collaboration on the part of our colleagues. So I know that I share the enthusiasm that many of our educators do, if not all of them, alongside our school leaders and Corey tonight.
All right, thank you. Good evening. And I'm excited to be the first person to present in this room. So whenever
Corey, I think you might have to bring your mic a little closer.
slides are ready. Okay, sure. All right, perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That looks really good. So, good evening, everybody. I'm really excited tonight to introduce you to the theme of Ridgefield Imagines for the 22-23 school year. And really, those three young ladies could not have done a better job setting the mood for the scene, for the theme that we have this year. And I do, just while we're looking at this beautiful image and everybody has their swag on them, around them on their desks, I just want to give full credit to Dr. DeSantis, who is not only a tech whiz, but also an artist. Because look at the logo that he designed that's now everywhere. Next slide, please. So last spring, I was brainstorming what the theme could be for this year. Because if you know anything about how last year went, you know that I loved talking about rebounding. I talked to teacher leaders, I talked to secretaries, I talked to administrators, I talked to my family. My husband suggested 3 pointers, and I was like, you don't understand. That doesn't mean anything. We have to think of something that means anything. And I was almost on my way to pick something like RPS Rocks On, when in the back hallway, in the music hallway at the high school, and this is a true story because I think Susie was around there, so I have someone to verify for me, I heard somebody playing on a piano the song Imagine. It was a student. I actually don't remember which student it was, but it really was a student. And we walked in there, and I heard those chords, and I thought, that could work. Because when you imagine, you look forward into the future, you experiment, you take risks, and then you can take all the things that we are forced to learn quickly over the last 3 years. We are so much smarter because we had to be. And wonder, now that we know this, what can we do differently that will work better for kids? So, next slide. So, imagine. If you imagine, you innovate, you create, you explore, you empathize, you engage, you understand. RPS knows how to do this. Think about it. Bridge overnight in the spring of 21. I think I had 3 months with, not by myself, of course, to get that up and running. Or even the school year tutoring that we did last year. We know how to do this. Next slide, please. So that is not to say that rebounding is over. That work will continue.
As a district, we will continue to respond to our students' needs and the learning loss for years to come. When we talk about our district priorities tonight, you'll see that that's one of our big priorities. That didn't change, and that's not going to change for a while. But we are ready as a district to look forward, to really change our stance. Rebounding feels like pulling back, and now we can really look forward and work towards building a better tomorrow for the students of RPS. Next slide, please. So after having this great idea that, we made the logo, we got the swag, we started thinking about how to celebrate it. Then we had to figure out, how do you explain that? What does that mean? Because it could mean so many different things to so many people. So I'm going to take you through some of the work we did in explaining it. So one, we looked to George Couros, who wrote a book called The Innovator's Mindset. And he offered us 8 characteristics that if leaders develop these 8 characteristics, it will lead teachers and administrators, and then our students even, to innovation. George Couros says that leaders who possess these characteristics create a culture where innovation can occur. So I don't know if organizations cease to exist without innovation, but if we don't cease to grow, we really aren't doing what's best for our students. So that's how I interpret this quote. Next slide, please. So we started at our administrator retreat, which is in August, before the teacher party, which is convocation, later in the month. And we had our leaders look at these characteristics that George Couros gives us. Leaders are visionary, they're empathetic, they model learning, they are open to taking risks, they're connected to people, they're observant, they build teams, and they're always focused on relationships. So for our leaders and our leadership team, because we were so lucky, there are a lot of these characteristics we feel like we do convey, but there's always one, at least one, maybe more than one, that we could work on. So we asked our administrators to think about which of these characteristics could they really lean into in order to foster innovation in their schools. And we also offered these characteristics as something that they could bring back to their teachers, and that their teachers could think about modeling these characteristics in front of their students. Next slide, please. So we got to introduce Imagine to our teachers at Convocation. And one of the ways that we did that is we told them that we imagined running Convocation differently this year from years in the past. We said, what if students took the lead? Instead of adults taking the lead and running the show, what if students took the lead? And Lizzie Garson, who was just here, student body president, senior now at RHS, she was our MC for the event. In addition, we had students from each of our schools come up to the microphone and introduce their new teachers. And then we asked a representative group to come up on stage and share what Imagine means to them. We had 2 seniors, we had an administrator, we had Dr. DeSantis, we had a music teacher, and their answers spanned from imagining different cultures and climates to different ways to teach and learn. So here are a couple of examples from one of our students. I imagine a community of students who genuinely know each other, our names, our talents, our interests, and our potential. Our school leader said, I imagine a school community that fosters curiosity and the spirit of encouraging endless possibilities. And then our last student, who is a senior that takes a lot of opportunity for all the scientific independent study, said, I imagine a school where students can express their passions outside of the traditional boundaries of the classroom. In RHS science research programs, students get to find mentors outside of schools who are professionals in their field of study. I imagine that all students have some access to this opportunity, for it grants us valuable lessons and allows us to imagine the many paths which are open to us in the future. So that was just an example of how we introduced Imagine to our teachers and really gave them an idea of what the different stakeholders might imagine for themselves. Next slide, please. So with any kind of theme, rebounding I thought was pretty easy to see. How do you know if you actually did it? How do you measure if we imagined, if we did it. If at the end of the year, can we say, did Ridgefield imagine this year, or was this just another year of us working really hard with our heads down? Were we able to look forward and see things differently? Some of the ways I think we can measure this is if we see more opportunities for student voice and feedback. I think tonight was just an example, bringing students to the forefront. If we see more comfort in risk-taking, if we see our teachers more comfortable going into each other's classroom and watching each other teach, if we create new course proposals in response to the studies that we're going to do that you're going to hear about in the district priorities, if we hear more questions that begin with what if all voices are heard, if we continue to work on new collaborations between departments, and so on and so on. So a couple specifics. What could Imagine look like? One thing that Imagine looks like is the Witness Stones project that Annie Tucci and Tom Broderick are going to present to you tonight. That's a real example. Another example is a new structure that was just created, K-12, for supporting our orchestra teachers. They have lived in isolation of each other, and now Mike McNamara, our new VPA chair, 612 VPA chair, has created a structure for them to actually get to work with each other on our early release day. Something that we saw at Convocation that was an example of that is our new combined middle school choir. We have a representative here who is supporting the growth of our algebra and geometry labs at the high school. It's really, really exciting what that group has imagined and continues to imagine. There's work going on around project-based learning at the alternative school, which is also equally exciting, thinking about how to keep engaging our students through multidisciplinary study and many, many more. Last slide, please. So there you go. That's our theme for the year. That's how we introduced it. Some examples of what it looks like, and then how we're going to measure at the end of the year if we really did it. Thank you. And for any questions. It's hard not to spin in this chair. It's very comfortable. Sorry.
Thank you. Who has our first question?
Okay.
Any questions? I imagine that's it for tonight.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay, next up is going to be district priorities, correct?
Yes, it is. So, John, you're going to throw up that next presentation? Put up the next presentation? So as John is displaying the district priorities, I just want to start by providing some context and how these happen. So there's a lot of work that happens from this side of the table and from that audience and from the many faculty, staff, administrators across the year that aren't listed here. But these are the ones that we believe are of high leverage, so much so that we want to be sure that we're really being thoughtful about how we measure them and also how we report back to the Board of Education. How we get here is feedback from stakeholders in a variety of ways. Sometimes that's our teacher feedback. Sometimes it's the Board of Education committees, things that we're hearing in the committee meetings. Sometimes it's from the full board. It could be student data that's driving our priorities, but ultimately, they're intended to be that high leverage work that we're really going to be focusing on as a big group. Last year, our theme was rebound, and there was a lot of recovery work that needed to happen. You'll hear us tonight say that that still needs to happen. So it's not that rebounding or that work that happened underneath that fun theme isn't a part of the work that's happening every single day, because it is. And you know that because our budget supports that, i.e. the 3 through 5 math program, the K-2 foundations program, our phonemic awareness program that we implemented. As Ms. Gillette mentioned, the labs at the high school and the work that's happening across content areas in MTSS. You'll hear about that. So it's important to understand how these priorities may impact further discussion points and sometimes long-range planning. So you'll hear tonight from special education the topic around co-teaching. That's been a topic that has been something that we've discussed at this board table for several years, and we'll probably be speaking about it for several more. You'll hear Joe talk about a master plan and what the impact of that master plan can be on our facilities Again, both short-term and long-term, something that he brought to this Board of Education table last year and was supported by our Board of Education in our capital plan, but ultimately through the budget process, as we know, sometimes things have to be prioritized, and that was one that required shifting. It's back this year. You're going to hear about topics in the business department, one specifically around transportation that has been an area of concern for this board before I even arrived here, and certainly something that we're still digging into because it has implications on many other things. You're going to hear from Human Resources, which is me tonight, on legislative work that began last year, but that will be continuing into next year. On the community side, we're always looking for opportunities to continue to develop our relationships with our town bodies, and you'll be hearing about that work as well tonight. These are draft, and so like we've done in the past, you are going to contribute, I'm sure, as a board, in looking at our language, looking at our timeline, and perhaps providing some insight on how we can be better. I think as an administrative group, and I'll say I believe this to be true with our leadership team and our teaching faculty, we are incredibly open to feedback. We recognize that we're not perfect. And so as we work through any work that happens at the central office level or at the school level, feedback is important to us because that's how we get better. And so we're open to that tonight and even as we move forward across the year. You'll know that we report back on our district priorities at minimum 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. Often, more often than not, we are providing broader presentations because the depth doesn't requires that we provide a more comprehensive approach to our discussion. Again, there's perhaps things that you might not see here that were important to you that are getting done, but just perhaps not listed on this priority page. So we'll start off with teaching and learning, the heavy lift coming from what matters most inside those classrooms with kids.
Okay. So this year, our second round through this as a team, the curriculum department divided up our priorities into 5 different buckets. The first bucket is around Imagine. And we're going to engage in the study of innovation within the areas of academic learning, culture and climate, and social emotional learning to provide more diverse opportunities and experiences for our students.
Corey, if I may, I'm sorry, I apologize. So what you're noticing up here are the buckets, but in your packets, you have the breakdown of the action steps, the outcome, and the timelines.
Absolutely, and I won't go through every single action step, I'll give you some of the highlights. So some of the highlights that go along with innovation is the assessment and revision of the K-12 VPA pathways by studying models from other districts and creating more open pathways for all students. This also includes a review of all current 9-12 pathways for all students across all content areas, getting a bird's eye view to expand, reduce, and innovate where needed. It also includes in Imagine working with the Flex Schedule, which has just been launched, which is really exciting at the high school, and the creation of the Career Technical Education Department at RPS, which is something that Dr. DeSantis is very involved in. Our second priority will look familiar. This is building on a lot of the work that we did last year. This is around learning loss, create an improved, equitable, aligned, and high-quality experience for all students. It also addresses learning loss and enrichment, both sides. And some highlights there is the work that we are going to do on transitions as students move from one level into the next. That's a big study that you'll be hearing about across the year. We're going to continue the work that we did last year in MTSS, specifically around MTSS intervention as we align and calibrate across all our schools, which is really important when you have 6 schools on one level. And this year, you're also going to hear about the hard work that's already begun on the creation of the new digital system that's going to house all of our student data so that we have better, cleaner, more long-term access to student data as they move through our schools, whatever their needs are, we want to be able to see and have that in one common place. So that's our second bucket. The third one is really around communication. We're always trying to do our best. There's a lot of work going on in schools. We really want parents to know. So the big goal, another big priority of our department is to continue to provide the clear and consistent communication, but really make sure that our parents are accessing it. So working with the stakeholders to communicate in ways that parents can find accessible and not overwhelming, which we just saw in a recent political cartoon about the many, many emails that parents get and missing the important ones. So we really that is our big goal, is to make sure that we can find a sweet spot where parents can learn about all the work that's happening in our schools. The next one is around how our students feel in school, creating welcoming environments for our students where they feel valued, respected, and safe to learn and grow. Last year, you heard about the work that we did in our administrative committee, and we're going to continue working on that in response to the surveys that we did of our administrators around the effectiveness of the tools and strategies that we have in our schools K-12, so you'll hear more about that. And for our fifth bucket, I'm just going to call up Dr. DeSantis, who's going to talk about the fifth priority that's around technology and education.
I don't know how this thing works. Hi, everyone. So in the fifth bucket, I believe Corey kind of hinted at it, that we are looking at a career technology education type program at Ridgefield High School. Over the springtime, I was able to go to Hamden High. It had an amazing program. I'm also looking to maybe visit Greenwich High School and a few other high schools in the state that have really neat programs that I think could filter certain students that I don't think there's proper outlets right now for them. I'll be the first to say that this year I'm very proud to bring to the board our media production class, which I think is something sorely missing from Ridgefield High School. I believe now we have the budget. I believe we have the talent. I think all the stars are aligning to finally bring this back to the high school. I think it's going to be a really great thing. So we'll be bringing that up in future meetings with other really cool tech updates, of course. But I just want to say that the one-to-one initiative went off without a hitch at the beginning of this year. The 4th and 6th and 9th graders all received the new Chromebooks. As of things stand right now, this time next year, I believe we will have all, as I like to call it, outdated legacy technology removed from the district as we speak. We're removing the smart boards with projectors with the new ViewSonic TVs. They're similar to this, but they're touch screen TVs that we can use instead of the smart boards. I also done some really cool money-saving calculations on how much electricity these new boards will save us. So that's a preview for another meeting down the road. It actually is a significant amount when you upgrade to new technology. It's more efficient, right? What up with that? The other really great thing that we've been working on with just the entire K-12 learning is the LMS program. So the library media specialists have really stepped up the movement into just doing media in both the elementary level, the middle level, and of course the high school level. The high school level, we've introduced WeVideo, which is a video editing and media editing platform that any student has access to, whether they are on a district Chromebook or any device. And the K through 5 LMS have been getting, in fact, this Thursday we'll be doing review on our digital citizenship program, which has launched really well. We're starting to get really good feedback from our LMS crew that has been doing it at the elementary level. I want to give a shout out to Kim Moran as our district tech integrator, and she's done a wonderful job creating a beginning of the year digital citizenship curriculum for our elementary students. This is something we've never done before, and I think it's a really good way of kind of easing the students into technology usage. So have a lot more to report as the year goes on, but that's, I think, a good beginning.
Thank you, Wes. All right, so we'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions.
Any questions on this segment? Say it, okay. Move on.
Thanks, Wes. Next slide, John.
Okay, so special education and pupil services, we have one main priority with a number of action steps within it, and that's to continue to expand our service delivery models within what we call our continuum of services. So we've spoken a lot in the last couple of years about the changing population that we have been seeing in district, not just with the numbers, but with the presentation of student needs. And so we have had the same general service models in district from what I can tell for at least the last 10 years, and our population is not the same as it was 10 years ago. So what we are doing this year is looking at 3 things that we can do to see, can we add another, what we would call step in our continuum to be able to meet student needs here in district. One is to look at the concept of what I'm saying informally, is an intensive learning center model at 2 of our elementary schools. So at our elementary school, we have Learning Center, and we have RISE. And for some students, there needs to be an in-between step. And so we're looking at how could that model work, particularly at 2 of our elementary schools this year. The second action step that we're taking is to look at how can we support our middle school co-teaching model through creative ways to provide collaboration time to those special educators within it and with their gen ed colleagues, because providing more time with students is sometimes not needed if we can optimize the time that we already have. And with anything with co-teaching, the relationship between the teachers and the combined efforts there is really the key. And then the third piece is that we're studying our 11th and 12th grade co-teaching services to look at the impact that it's having on students, in particular their ability and readiness to transition out of high school. So are we preparing them as best as possible for what they can expect in post-high school life, whether that's 2 4-year schools, trade, going into the workforce, going to the military, whatever that case may be, is can we consider, particularly for our students who are at the end of their career with us, how to optimize that service delivery model. And then the last piece here, which isn't about our continuum of services, but because it really is going to be a huge piece of the department work for at least this school year, if not multiple school years to come, and so we thought it prudent to add as a district priority so that the board and the public were aware of it, is that the state of Connecticut, starting July 1st, has written a brand new IEP and required all districts to use a brand new database system in order to write the IEP. So the good news is it's free to districts, which is lovely, except they didn't do a beta year, so as soon as it was available, everyone has to use it. And so learning this new IEP and the new database system is a massive undertaking that is really going to be a huge part of our professional learning this year, because the IEP is the cornerstone of all the work we do to support students' individualized needs. So at some point throughout the year, you will hear us to continue to talk about something called CT-SEDS, which stands for Connecticut Special Education Data System. But really what we're also talking about is a brand new IEP, which has, I think in the long run, everyone who's experienced it thus far really does think it's going to be better. It feels like a lot whenever you're at the beginning of some new change like that. So those are our action steps for our 1 priority. They're doing a good job. They're doing a good job so far. Everyone's staying calm right now. 2 weeks in.
We'll understand if you're in a bad mood.
It's the dunk tank.
Yeah.
Any questions for Liz? What was next up?
Yeah, facilities?
Here we go. So this year, this upcoming year, I have 2 goals. The first one will be familiar to you. It's the master plan. Again, it'll be part of the capital plan to get this engineering study underway and try to sell it to the other 2 boards because of its critical nature. We do have aging buildings. We're doing a lot, but my budget and the capital budget right now doesn't really support all the work that these buildings need. So the big part of this goal is also weighing out all the options for the alternative high school. That's been an ongoing struggle, and looking forward, we have to look at the choices. Do we invest in another space, or do we invest in the current space? So it'd be important for me to get that message across, and with your support, push that through. The second goal is a new goal, and that surrounds security for the district. This is a new goal. It's looking at a vision and a plan for a safer and more secure, supportive district-wide security framework. So building on the layers that we already have, that we discussed in executive session, we're now looking for consultant work. And I haven't shared this with Dr. De Silva yet, but we will be starting our evaluations next week.
Next week?
Next week. So we're going to build off of that work to help shape security picture going forward. And so there'll probably be some budget whatever it is. Implications.
It's late.
It's a tough word. Both on the capital and on the operating side, depending on how this study plays out. That's it.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
The other piece that it's in, again, in your backup documents, it's here, but I think the 18 to 22 program is another program in which, right now, they're currently housed in a portable at Veterans Park. And we, thanks to Joe's help and the team, we did a lot of, in the town, we did a lot of updating that portable last year. And in our facilities department, did the same with the alternative high school. And we have some proposals ready, if needed, to expand the alternative high school by very, very little space. That would end up, by very little square footage, which would end up being a capital item. And what we're really trying to gain from this master plan is how much are we investing, whether it's in these two facilities or other facilities. You'll hear in an upcoming meeting about a feasibility study from the high school around the auditorium space, and creating a space that I believe our students deserve. And again, what those costs will be. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see what we can gain from this to help us understand aging facilities, how much it's costing us, and when we need to expand, whether it's the alternative high school now, 18 to 22, or quite frankly, special education programs where we could possibly create programs where we can bring children back to our community, back to their community. I think that this master plan could help us with that. So I'm hopeful. And on the security topic, we recognize that that is a passionate topic for families, as it is for us. And while there's a lot that we can't communicate publicly, there is some that we can communicate publicly, and we're hopeful that as we have the First Responders Academy coming in and doing work with our administrative teams, and I did know this morning that they were coming, I just didn't know it was next week yet. So that's good news, is as they begin to do that work alongside our school leaders, a very personalized approach, there will be some things that we definitely can communicate to families to help them understand the what and the why. And, you know, some things that we won't be able to, but certainly those that have budget implications will be communicated to the full board and public.
I think this year the master plan has to be, we have to make it clearer to a broader audience what it is exactly and why we need it. I think that kind of held us back this year.
Yeah,
There
the
were some
cell's gonna
questions
be
as to
very
what it
important,
was.
yeah.
Questions for Joe?
Okay, I'm going to speak on behalf of Karen, who couldn't be here tonight. Made it a little bit easier for me because these are two goals that she already had last year. One is legislative, one is not. The established systems across Ridgefield Public Schools to create and support a racially, ethnically, and linguistically diverse workforce. You can see that those action steps, some are continued. She has a couple of new ones related to having collaborative work done with CES, the State Department, and Durgay in terms of their recruitment practices. Also, one of the newer action step is to finalize the district core values and beliefs regarding the importance of diversity in its staff within the school community. The second priority actually came from a Board of Education goal that was developed last year. You might remember we revised the Board of Education goals, and one of the goals was to enhance the district's reputation as an employer of choice. And I think that must be happening because this year, in fact, we shared this actually at Convocation, a really unique year in that when we hired, we were hearing from a lot of the potential candidates that they've heard such amazing things about this community. And the faculty, the staff, the collaboration, the partnership, the professional learning. And when they had a choice between A and B, and even if A perhaps offered them a little bit more on the financial side, the reputation of our school community is evolving in a positive way. And so much so that I do believe that that has helped our recruitment practices and ensuring that we are one of those school communities that people really want to work in. And I think that we say it all the time when we hire folks that, yes, you know, you're lucky to come here and we're lucky to have you, but this is an amazing community in which to work. And you should feel proud to come and step, put your feet here at the Ridgefield Public Schools because it is special. It starts with our kids, our faculty, our parent community, very unique. And we let our teacher candidates know that as we hire them. I think the other piece of having our school district be one of choice is how we are marketing our community, and that's work that's happening now, and actually started with some interns last year and creating videos that really tell folks what our community is about, and what we value, and why it's important to be a part of that when you're investing in your career. Come to a place that you're valued and have the opportunity to learn and grow with us, also take risks, and have great partnerships with not just your colleagues, but your school leaders as well. Also, feedback is part of the work that Karen is involved in. So when faculty leave us, we understand a little bit why they might want to leave, but also when they're entering us, why do you want to come to Ridgefield is one of those first questions, and it helps us understand what it is that we're doing well to continue to foster that reputation.
Questions for Karen?
Okay. Okay, Jill, you're up.
So a couple of main goals in the business department this year. First is continuing the work around transportation. The goal is to study the district's transportation policies and practices to identify potential opportunities for efficiencies and savings. So the first action step there is measuring reports of opt-ins and opt-outs from families. Hopefully, we'll see if that results in some consolidation of runs, which would be the efficiency. We certainly don't want full buses running half empty. We have to find a balance there with the geography, the timing, and the tier coverage throughout the district. We're also going into this with fresh eyes and open minds, which I think is a positive for this project. We are perfectly willing to and excited to assess the current software that we're using. There's two major players in the game, the EdgeLog system and Versatrans, so we are studying that to see if we have the best system to serve our community in the best way. And then also continuing the work, as you know, we've talked about several times, and hopefully you saw the vans when you pulled in this evening. One of those is up and running that has allowed for some initial consolidation. The second one, we're just awaiting the final inspections for that vehicle and the staff to operate. So like Dr. De Silva said, we're hoping to see that one go in the October timeframe. So this is, you'll hear me talk about this and update you in the financials each month as well. Second priority is establishing a system for cross-training key employees within the business department. We view this as kind of the gears turning that support everything that everyone here has already talked about. And if and when life happens, payroll still has to occur, accounts payable still has to occur, food service still has to occur. So we need to build some redundancies within skill sets so that, I guess so that we stay invisible, right? Because when everything is running great in the business department, everything's invisible. No complaints. We don't want to hear complaints. We want everything to continue to run smoothly. So that is a major vulnerability right now. So for me specifically, that's a huge goal for us.
Okay. All right, last one, John. So community and communication, I think this will be one of those priorities that will likely never leave the school district. And the reason I say that is because we can always become better at communicating within our community. And so what's interesting about Ridgefield is we have many partnerships of which we're very lucky to have. So we have the town, we have our facilities, and we have Parks and Rec. And we all have a role within the school system. And so ensuring that each of us understand our capacities, what our work is, who's responsible for what, and finding a clear model of communication for those roles is where we will be working this year. I think because A, it's important that our schools be buttoned up across every part of them, but also B, if everyone understands what their responsibilities are, there isn't that push-pull from the organization. So that's something that we worked on last year, with the playgrounds, and we're gonna continue to work on that this year with the communication around topics such as playgrounds or other facilities that happen on the outside of the buildings alongside Parks and Rec. So hopefully we'll find a mechanism into doing that so that we can have some clear communication and ownership on the part of all three organizations. With the help of my friend Allison Pratt, that's right over there, we have consolidated the RPS News and the RPS Update into one. So we work pretty closely with one another by Thursday at 3 p.m. approximately to get our communication out and prepared for the public on Friday. And we did that really with the intention of streamlining how much communication parents receive so that they're not feeling like that image that I put up on Instagram where you don't know what's coming and when, and there's so much to see and so much to do. You'll also see that each school will take bits from our communication and add the depth that they need. So I may speak about security overall, and then each school, based on their building and their facilities, might describe that in greater detail, because I think it is important to remember that security at the high school may look different than security at an elementary school. Staffing may look different. But that communication and really being intentional about what we're communicating and when we're communicating is something that we're working on together. We have ongoing meetings with just the chairs of the boards so that we're all on the same page. And what I've learned from even just from our own board is we have different people coming in right at different points of the year and being really thoughtful about communication and frequency and quite frankly repetition. It's hard for us to remember what we did last September, and we're in this line of work, and just being sure that our boards hear the messaging, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, especially around topics that impact the financial well-being of the community, specifically around special education. We spoke this morning at our Budget and Finance Committee how important it is that this board have frequent updates on what's happening with special education and the costs, because it is such a volatile part of our budget. And quite frankly, that is impacted, of course, on the community side because there are so many unknowns. But not only with our board, finding opportunities to communicate that as well to the other boards so that we're all on the same page. And if that means that we have to have a redundancy on our part, we're glad to be redundant, because if it benefits everyone in terms of the communication and clarity, we're good with that. And then again, around projects specifically with capital and being sure that we all understand whose responsibility is what. So if it's playgrounds, if it's repairing of playgrounds, whatever the case may be, I think it's important that we all have that collaboration so that we're communicating clearly and there isn't any one of our schools that is left without having what they need for the start of the school year because someone thought it was somebody else's responsibility, and that goes obviously with all of us. So not one particular board, but all three working together. And that is it.
Any questions or comments overall? I think this document here is something that could be very helpful to share with the members of both other boards in town at the beginning of the year.
Sure.
There was some question about, what the goals are, what we're trying to achieve. If we can share that with them at the beginning of the year, they can follow along with us throughout the rest of the year.
We'll do that. We have, just to add, one of the things that we've started to do as of last spring is to send the board, all boards they get our Friday communication, they also get our Board of Ed agendas, and we can subsequently send them the video so that they have it right at their fingertips and don't have to go digging through it, and we could alleviate that step for them, we will.
Great. Okay, I believe next up is witness stones.
All right, so we have two colleagues here to present on witness stones. Would you like to introduce them, Annie? Corey?
Yes. So we have Dr. Annie Tucci here, who is our 612 Humanities Supervisor. And this is Tom Broderick, who's the 8th grade social studies teacher. at CERMS Middle School, and they are going to share an example of what it looks like when Ridgefield imagines. Welcome.
I'm so excited to share this information with everybody that I signed up for the first Board of Ed meeting to make sure.
She did. She did.
So, and the reason I did that is because it's just, we have such a great connection right now to our district priorities and also the Imagine theme. So it just felt like a really natural fit to share with you a really practical experience of what this will look like for our schools. So again, I'm Dr. Annie Tucci, our 612 Humanities Supervisor, and I'm joined tonight with Tom Broderick, one of our 8th grade social studies teachers who inspired this project and asked the question, which is really what this is all about, what social studies education is all about. So next slide, please. Social studies is founded, it's rooted in inquiry instruction. So tonight's presentation is going to be a little bit informational about our C3 framework, why community partnerships are so important, and then also in practice what this will look like for our students. Next slide, please. So the guiding principles of our C3 framework is that inquiry is at the center of what we do. And when we're teaching social studies, we're not just teaching history, we're also teaching geography, economics, civics, right? These are the 4 main disciplines that are outlined in our C3 framework. Next slide, please. The way that the framework is organized, often when we talk to students about structures of a text, right? This is the structure of our C3 framework for our social studies educators. It has 4 dimensions, and it's known as the inquiry arc. And what that means is, in dimension 1, we have asking questions, right? The students are planning inquiries. Dimension 2 are the concepts and skills related to our 4 disciplines. So history is the predominant one in social studies, right? But geography, economics, and civics is also engaged in all of that work, because social studies is about how we live and how we talk with each other and how we learn together. And then from there is our evaluating of sources. So dimension 2, think of it as building knowledge, right? This is the content. These are the skills to access history. But evaluating our sources is so important because we need our students to be able to contextualize, corroborate, know that it's real information that they are putting their stories together to understand the past and to inform the future. And then lastly, dimension 4 of the arc is the culminating experience. So communicating conclusions can look in a variety of ways. You may have heard your children coming home saying, I wrote an essay on a DBQ today. That's a traditional social studies method of, of
Less
arguments.
exciting.
It's not so exciting, but it is, I love it. So anyway, so students will have an opportunity to communicate their conclusions about the questions they asked, often bringing up new questions, right? So, and then taking informed action. It's not always easy to get to that taking informed action piece, right? Because you can't do it all, every unit. I mean, it's really hard to do. But you can if you have good, strong community partnerships. So, next slide, please. So just to dive a little deeper into what this means, I wanted to start with what the skill set is in order to engage in an inquiry. So Tom's going to share with us about these historical thinking skills and processes.
Thank you. Good evening. So in terms of these skills, I thought back to when Annie showed me this slide, and in 2017, we had done work with Heidi Hayes Jacobs, a series of PDs, and she had framed the discipline of history in 3 questions. What do historians actually do? How do they know what they know about the past? And how do they then communicate those findings to the public? And that's what those skills are all about, right? So historians, they ask relevant, important questions. They dive into authentic sources. I'm going to use that word authentic a lot. because I think that fits this project really well. And then ultimately, as Annie said, that communicating conclusions, that's the hardest part. How do we give kids an authentic chance, right? Yeah, the DBQ, it's great, but like your parents aren't gonna read the DBQ. Maybe you do, but no one's reading their child's DBQ. So it
will
doesn't
now.
go anywhere. We value them, but it doesn't go anywhere. And so giving kids a chance to see where their work has an impact, that's the hardest part. All of these skills, though, get there. How does the evidence, not only can we assess its validity, how does it corroborate with one another? That's a really hard skill. In terms of chronology, where does Ridgefield sit in the story of American history, right? And then that last piece, I'll just go to argumentation. What is it that you actually need to communicate, and what evidence and reasoning do you need to support that argument? So those are kind of those core skills of ultimately what Heidi Hayes Jacobs has said. What does a historian do? What do they make? We want to give the kids opportunities to do that.
And sometimes when we see the word argumentation, I think for us, we may immediately think debate, right? Or arguing. And that's not what argumentation really is at all. It's being able to take that corroborated evidence and make sense, and that you're building fact, right? So that's what we will be able to do. So next slide, please, because I feel like I'm, bringing the, everybody's been waiting to hear about this. So our partnerships, that we are partnering with the Ridgefield Historical Society and the Witness Stones. The Witness Stones project, you'll see on the map here, is currently working with 87 school districts in 6 states. 6,600 students have participated in an event or something related to it. They work with other town organizations and civic action groups, right, that are not just public schools. So they are working with communities all over the state of Connecticut. It was founded by Dennis, I always call Colton, thank you. So he founded this organization with the hopes of, as a former 8th grade teacher, with the hopes of bringing history and that inquiry arc alive. So next slide, please. So what actually is the Witness Stones Project? So the goal of this project was inspired by, I want to make sure that I pronounce this correctly.
Well, we had
it's
a
from
debate
Germany.
about
I
German
know.
pronunciation.
It was an argument. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
all
kidding. So Stolperstein, okay? So the Stolperstein project in Germany is about bearing witness to and bringing the humanity back to people who had been part of the Holocaust, and restoring their histories and returning humanity back to those people, right? So with their blessing, Dennis had been in contact with them with their blessing to do something similar here in our region to support and bring back the humanity to formerly enslaved persons. So next slide, please. Which is where, sorry, I didn't say it loud enough. Thank you. So all of these towns have witness stones in them. And the stone, which we will show you in just a moment, is a way of commemorating a person who contributed to that community and celebrating that person's life. History, though, can be challenging to find the sources to put this story of these people together, right? So that's why the partnership is so, so important. Next slide, please. So the Ridgefield Historical Society, and I believe a former student,
Yes,
who did the archiving work. She was a former student. I do believe that she was in a different district after high school, correct? Or different high school? I can't remember. Anyway, so a former student was also part of this work as well. Tom asked the question, I think 2 years ago, or 3 years ago
It's a
now,
long time.
and connected with Dennis at Witness Stones and also Betsy Reed at the Ridgefield Historical Society. So we are seeing this come to fruition. And they have done all of the archiving. They have found the primary resources for 2 formerly enslaved persons from Ridgefield that were part of the Scott family, or enslaved by the Scott family. And so we are going to be eventually placing witness stones at our historical society. Next slide, please. So how does this impact curriculum? So what happens is our teachers have engaged in professional development, and the reason why we are able to do this so seamlessly as part of our 8th grade inquiry experience is because we start with the colonial era, and this is the time period. So we are able to jump right in with an inquiry at the start of 8th grade, teaching that contextualization skill, right? So our students will engage through the work of being a historian because of the witness stones, with the analysis and the corroboration of primary sources from the probate courts, from the town records, census, right? All of the things that are public record that our students may not have known are even available, right? They're going to be looking at the wills and of the estates, the inventories, and just to put that story together to bear witness to these people's lives. Next slide, please.
So we're really excited.
I know, we're jazzed.
I know, we're incredibly excited. And if you'll indulge me sounding like a sophomore English class, I don't read Transcendentalist often, so don't think I'm doing so, but there's an Emerson quote from Self-Reliance that always kind of stood out to me. And he says, "The intellect is vagabond, and our system of education fosters restlessness. Our minds travel when our bodies are forced to stay at home." That's something I think about often as a history teacher. We're studying things that are often far away. Kids can't visit them, or if they can, it's hard to get to. And what's so thrilling about this is it's the exact opposite. The mind, the intellect, the body, they're all studying the same place. They're going to be in Ridgefield. And as Annie said, these are documents that haven't been looked at since the 1700s. Our students are going to be doing that. And I used that word authentic earlier. They really are actually becoming historians. They are going to contribute to our understanding of Ridgefield that doesn't currently exist. They are going to be the ones who write about these two enslaved individuals. And they are ultimately going to be the ones who put together, which we'll get to later, the actual ceremony where we honor them. So they really are truly historians in every sense of the word, which is really remarkable to be able to do. So we're thrilled to be doing so. And ultimately, we couldn't do it without Ridgefield Historical Society. If Betsy wasn't willing to at the Historical Society, if we didn't have our former ERMS intern who spent her entire summer in like the dusty archives of the town.
It's not dusty.
Well, she went
It's
through
very clean
she
and
went
cool.
through thousands of archives as a 21-year-old, so God bless her. But we couldn't do it without all of this kind of community engagement, and we're thrilled, and that's why it's so important to us.
And it all comes down to our students. They're going to get to engage in an authentic inquiry of their own town and take part in that. So next slide, please. So mark your calendars. November 15th is our tentative, it's going to be the date because it has to be. We will be engaging in a installation ceremony. I think I actually had you on this slide, so I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
You're in charge.
I'm
You
already
take
in.
over.
Okay. So we will be hosting a live stream, so the community will be able to be part of it. You'll have your invitations from our students. Hopefully our curriculum committee will have an update from our students, and they will be taking the lead in this work. So we are very excited. So the plans are not set yet because the students have to be part of that. But the date is set. So next slide, please.
This is ultimately, I don't think we showed a picture yet.
No, I don't think so.
These are what the stones look like. They're in the ground. So if you've ever been to Germany or other places, the Stolperstein, literally stumbling blocks. We'll have kind of our own version of that. Again, to bear witness to the history. I believe the two individuals will be Quash and Lydia, who will be studying. So you'll learn more about them as our students tell their story and literally write about it.
Yes, we can't tell you about them because they'll ruin the inquiry.
Yes. And ultimately, just as the students are going to be the historians, they're really going to be driving the installation, the ceremony. We want them to be the ones who are thinking about how does it go, who presents, who's going to show their work. So yeah, it's really going to be student-led. And I would just want to say, I really think it's going to deepen their connection to the town. This is an incredible opportunity for them. Ridgefield's so rich in history. It's an unparalleled opportunity for the kids to feel like they're a part of Ridgefield and its story.
And lastly, we have plans for this for the next 5 years. So each year, each school will have their own person to study and inquire about. So as long as we are still able to uncover the primary sources to tell these stories, then we will continue to do so. So, next slide, please. It just says questions. So if you have any questions for us, we are happy to answer them.
Selena, just tap your mic. It might be on.
I love what you're doing. It's phenomenal. I can't wait to hear the story. I was hoping you would tell us.
It's a juicy story. We're gonna save it.
When we heard someone speak on this program, I don't know, about a year ago, and her story was fascinating, what they uncovered and everything. So thank you so much for doing this. I think it's so important, and I can't say enough good things about it. So thank you, and I'm gonna be watching. I want to hear the story now. So thank you.
I hope our students feel the same way.
Yeah, it's really, it's very admirable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. I think this is great. I think it was a poet who spoke at where we were. It was amazing. It was so moving, and the fact that we're doing this with our students is amazing. I mean, I know I was from Scotts Ridge. I know all the great work Tom has done, so I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm just going to throw it out there. You're not the only one who's excited by DBQs. There could be a student there who does get very excited with them. No names, but
It's the only kind of assessment that has all the answers right in front of you, right?
there
They're all
is a
in there.
child
You just
who
have to
loves
find them.
that, and it's because of the background in history and the way you've been teaching all this is doing the second year of an AP in history. So obviously, there are some students who do like that, just saying.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So I might reiterate a lot of the stuff that you guys said, because in preparation for your presentation this evening, I thought it was fabulous. I went back and I first went to the RPS curriculum website, which I have to say this again, it's so thoughtfully designed for anyone to just go there for easy use and access. I was able to pull up the grade 8, social studies curriculum, and just as you're describing, it says there, types of assessments and learning tasks, inquiry projects, and document-based questions using primary and secondary sources. I really do believe that this Witness Zone project is not only a way to honor the humanity of the enslaved who helped build our communities, which is as per its purpose, but it also teaches students how to use those primary and secondary sources in a real-life application, and that's what I think you were describing. Definitely supportive of this curriculum work. I just want to thank you, Dr. Tucci, Mr. Broderick, for taking this project on. Thank you. I really do think it also supports our mission and vision of the graduate. So thank you.
Thank you. We're very excited.
If I just may, I worked with Tom separate from Annie, but never Annie and Tom together. And when we talk about, again, why our community is so great, the passion that a school leader and a school educator have brought tonight on a topic that, she's right, she wanted to be on this agenda even though we said it was too long. And she snuck her way into that agenda, but it's clear just from the way in which the two of you are engaging around this topic is that's exactly what makes our community incredibly special. So thank you for that and showing us that passion and that excitement, because that will translate to our kids for sure. So I imagine that they will be equally excited come November 14th or 15th? 15th, to share the work that they've done over the course of, a couple months. So I know when you came last year, this was something you were so interested in, and it's just so nice to see it come and to life. So congratulations to you both, and thanks, Tom.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you. I just do want to highlight too, before we step off, the excitement is across the board with all 4 of our 8th grade teachers. The collaboration that has occurred because of the professional development time and the shared time that they've been able to have to engage in something so different has just created this really wonderful collaborative relationship between all 4 of our 8th grade teachers. And I'm just so proud of the work that they have done to lift this, because it's not easy.
I would say 90% of those hours we're trying to figure out a Scott family tree first.
Yes.
It's complex,
That was
but yes.
extremely complex. and a little, interesting.
That's
So-
it, say the same.
So thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Moving into school readiness and capital projects.
All right.
All right, you don't need to fear for 21 pages. Most of them are pictures.
It's all pictures, all pictures. Next slide, John. Oh, boy.
All right, so as Joe's just, here we go, as we're good?
We're good.
Just really quick, there's so much work that happens over the course of the summer that tonight is a nice opportunity to share out how much our facilities crew actually gets done. And some of it obviously is by our facilities crew and others are not. It's just there's a lot of coordinating with outside vendors, but no small task, and it's a short period of time. So a big thanks to Joe and his team because they really do produce miracles before the start of school. All right, Joe, 28 slides.
28 slides, real quick. So well said. I mean, this was a summer of challenges. I mean, in the past, we've dealt with a lot of things, but this year was especially hard and challenging. Basically, as Dr. De Silva said, our window of work gets shorter and shorter every summer. And that poses a problem when we're scheduling and we're trying to work around. We have the activities of Bridge and ESY. So we've been working with, this summer, particularly with Corey and Liz, to navigate around all those activities successfully, I might add. And then, of course, there was the shortages in resources. It was just so hard to get vendors out there, contractors out there, and they were faced with their own problems. They were backlogged. They're trying to recover from the layoffs of COVID and trying just to get everything, trying to stay ahead of everything. And then, of course, as you know, the situation with the lead times, it was just a killer. We started to order things in May and June, and they didn't really show up at our doorstep until well into the summer. And then we also had price increases. We had to be pretty creative around there as far as maybe some substitutions of materials, using in-house resources to try to get things ready. And then, of course, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner, there's always those unplanned issues of a tri-axle dump truck going down 116, taking down all the power lines. So, true story. That's a true picture, and that's an unemployed driver right there.
Aw, we have a van for you.
Well, maybe he could be a van driver. So the impacts, just to kind of put some context and some color to it. On the capital side, we had a oil tank replacement scheduled for Barlow Mountain. We're looking at 28 plus weeks to get that tank. Unfortunately, that had to get pushed off until the summer of '23. The East Ridge generator was a 1 year out, a little over 1 year out to get that generator. It's already been ordered, but we're just waiting. So we did a lot of the prep work. I'll show you in one of the slides of the work we did to get this. So this is basically drops in place and ready to go next summer. The acid neutralization tank, we're 3 months out on that. And the lighting system for the ERMS auditorium is still to be determined. They're waiting for the manufacturer to get ahead of their production line. On the operating side, we had some cameras that we ordered for the security. These are these pan-tilt zoom cameras. They're 12 weeks out. So we had to we're still waiting for a couple of them, but we do have one installed at Farmingville right now. Vestibule security devices. These are the access control readers, the cameras, and the intercom systems are all about 10 weeks out. So we should have those probably sometime in October, I hope. A window film for the vestibules, we're looking at 3-month installation window. And then I had 2 sections of boilers at Farmingville, and they were 5 months out. 5+ months out, and we just got those in last week. Next slide.
Joe, can I just
Oh,
ask
you
a
know what?
question? No, you're off now, you're on.
Oh.
Joe, can I
Oh.
ask a question? Because the concept of the capital projects, for those of us that were at that meeting with the security in the Board of Finance and/or the Board of Selectmen, do we at all provide them with an update on delays, just to,
No, that was actually brought up at, I think, the Board of Finance, that they were looking for that going forward. So when we are faced with those, those will be communicated,
okay.
yeah. Boys? So with challenges comes success, and I'm proud to say that, you know, we were able to complete over 60 projects, and a lot of those have multiple steps. And we also closed out 4 out of our 5 deferred capital projects, which you'll see in the next couple of slides. Our projects touched 8 out of the 9 schools, and of course, we worked, I think, successfully through Summer Bridge and ESY, because it seemed that those schools seemed to have the most projects. So it was a lot of tap dancing and coordinating, but with the help of Corey and Liz, we got it all together. And these are just some pictures of some of the projects, whether this is the boardroom here, Scotland vestibule going up, we had some issues at the Scotts Ridge, no, actually, it's at Scotland Pump House, with the controls for the fire pump system. This is Mike LaPriore putting up one of the many TV monitor signage at the, I think that's the Student Center. Next slide. So this gives you a little bit of context as far as the security vestibule at Scotland. That was a deferred project from 2021. And we finally completed that with like 3 days to spare. And we got tied up with a little bit in the permit process, but that is, the infrastructure is in place. We're just waiting on the peripherals inside, the cameras and the intercom system and some of the, for the guard. There's some, a voice port that has to go in one of the windows, and an access slot for documents to be slid through. Next slide. This is Veterans Park. We replaced the inside doors. They were not able to be locked. This was a project on the operating side. We did but basically, this is the same thing. We're waiting on all the devices to go inside, but as far as being locked and secured, it's able to achieve that. And again, we're looking at probably October for all that equipment to be put in place. Next. Another deferred project from 2021. These are the anti-vehicle intrusion bollards. The second part of this comes up for a town vote next week to complete the rest of the schools. But this kind of shows you the construction that goes along with that. It's pretty extensive. The engineering piece of it is pretty remarkable. So they will stop a car at 55 miles an hour. Next. Asbestos abatement, and that's Branchville. We're closing in on our final steps there. I think next year, this coming capital, will be the last go-round there, and we will have completed all of our schools as far as being abated. Next. This was the prep work that I spoke about for the generator that's a year out. Again, it was a deferred capital project from 21-22. And again, you can just see that the work that was entailed, and this was just so that we can get to that point where we can just drop the generator in place and fire it up. And it's a 500 kVA generator, which will power the whole school. And that's important as a disaster recovery site as well as a shelter should the town need it. Next. This was at the high school. This was the automatic transfer switch. It was a deferred project from 21-22. Again, it was impacted by material delays. We were scheduling it for last summer. We were able to get it done this summer. The picture at the top right shows you the condition of the original. It was a lot of corrosion and rust. And this was completed about 2 weeks ago. We had our final inspection and tested, and it's all ready to go. It's an all stainless steel enclosure now. We have new control wires going out to the generator, and we have remote annunciator panels now for the generator, so we'll be able to monitor when it goes on. Next. Bathrooms. So, Farmingville Elementary School, there is the original bathrooms up in the top row there. And this just kind of chronicles the work that was done over the summer. Removing the fixtures, replumbing for the new fixtures, the tile work, and the partition work, and there's what it looks like now. And quite a difference from the 1960s terrible looking bathrooms. The next slide. Again, so that was the boys' room. This is the girls' room at Farmingville. You can see the original condition up top with the old outdated partitions and just the overall condition of the floor and walls. And that's what we accomplished over the summer there. Next slide. East Ridge. This was the boys' bathroom. This was noted in a lot of our walkthroughs, the condition of it. As you can see, quite a lot of work went into it, and it really is, it came out beautiful. This one, it would be the girls' room, and again, the same work went into that, the same tile, and the same, all brand-new fixtures, and that's that. So next slide. East Ridge, this was a deferred project from 2021 on the capital side, replacing student lockers. They were having issues at the time with the locks and just a lot of maintenance issues overall and the condition of the lockers. So this capital project, again, these were ordered a year and a half ago, basically, and they just came in over the summer, so we were able to get those completed. Next slide. The front office at the high school, that was an operating budget. Again, if this was tied into the acid neutralization tank, if you remember when we had the backup. The carpet kind of took a beating. We had to move some projects around to fund the whole area there instead of kind of piecemealing it. But that just kind of shows you the pictures, what we've done. We also took, you see the desk that's there now, that came out of the library Learning Commons. And it's I think, a much more effective use of space there. And finally, yes. So, that was some of them, and here's part of the other ones. Richfield High School, I won't go through the whole list, but, we did the building-wide signage installations. The loading dock, that was a large project on the town side, taking up all the concrete flat work and new drainage system. We put the gate at Ridgebury Road, air conditioning in the Mark Twain room. East Ridge LED lighting upgrade, that was a capital project. There was a building-wide interior painting by both my staff as well as I believe it was some parents did the artwork there going down the hallway. And the town also did a solar installation project, which I believe will probably be commissioned within the next month or so. Barlow Mountain, vestibule electronics and locks. And you'll see that's kind of a recurring theme through the older elementary schools. And again, that was updating the locks on the interior doors, electrifying them so we could use card access, putting cameras inside the vestibule, creating access ports for the guards, and an intercom system to communicate to the guards and to the front offices. Branchville, besides all the asbestos abatement, we went through a number of classrooms and started sink replacement and cabinetry project, and that'll be ongoing throughout the year into next year. The town, in conjunction with the board here, we did a front entrance sidewalk replacement. Farmingville, vestibule electronics and locks, and that is a picture of the 5 megapixel PTZ zoom camera to enhance one of the layers of our security on the surveillance side. And then we had, as I spoke earlier, the heating boilers, 1 and 2, we had rear sections go, and those were 5 months in the wait, and the guys were finally there, putting them in last week. There was some painting at Scotland and Ridgebury. We had some walk-in cooler work with compressors. We had to replace those, and vestibule work. And then, of course, Scotland, we did the logistics for the summer bridge materials and supplies, and plus a number of other logistic things. And I believe that is it. And then some.
That's
So,
it? Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot. Sleep most of the time.
Yeah, it was a challenge, I'll admit it. I like a good challenge, but this was a rough summer. And we're still waiting, you know, so I keep, you know, Dr. De Silva keeps wondering when all the things are gonna be in place, and they're getting there. It's just, it's on some boat somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, there's a mascot in France, and there's a vestibule
There-
probably
yeah,
right
somebody's-
alongside it. Just a couple of points is when you look at East Ridge, the lighting, it's hard to really conceptually understand what a difference that makes until you walk through the building. Between the lighting and the paint, it feels like a completely different school. And I know when I went to East Ridge, Joe and Brett, who you saw across every photo, Brett Metters, who doesn't get enough credit, who
And I should publicly, yeah, between, you know, my team, Nancy Dermott and Brett, plus my custodians and my maintainers, none of this would have been possible.
Yeah, it truly is a very small but effective team. And you can find Nancy unloading 6,000 test kits this summer, the day before school began. But the East Ridge piece, it is amazing how the lighting, the paint, and the mural or the sign that was painted on the walls, what a difference that made. And I know when I was there visiting, I messaged Joe and said, "Oh my gosh, East Ridge." And he said, "You're in the bathroom?" I'm like, "In the bathroom?" Because he was so proud of the work that the facilities did in the bathroom, and you could see what a difference. It's transformational for kids, but just walking in the hall, and if you have an opportunity, and maybe as a board, we should find that opportunity to do some walkthroughs, because again, it is a different school, and it's no small task on the Board of Ed side, and quite frankly, even on the town side, and the number of projects that they've been able to do, and Town Jake, as we call him affectionately, how many different projects he's completed in partnership with Joe over the summer to have our schools ready. And you can capture it in 28 slides, but it really doesn't capture the heavy lift.
First of all, great job again, but I was gonna suggest the walkthrough. It's been a couple of years since we did that.
Yes.
And we've got new board members that haven't done that, and last time we did it, we also did it with selectmen and finance, which I think would be
Yes.
a good idea to we did it in shifts and traded off in different schools, but that was instructive, and I remember walking through, I think it was Branchville at that point, that was pretty yellow. The lighting was just, it was yellow. And, because they were in the middle of the LED project, so we could actually see rooms that were yellow and rooms that were not. We could see furniture that was in disrepair and some of the new.
It is dramatic.
Yeah.
So we'll plan that.
And we have other, and you'll see,
But do-
you know, as the capital, as, you know, the next capital comes up, I think Farmingville will be next.
Who's up, Jill?
Jill's got the next three.
It's me. Last presentation. Well, so we put together a year-end report for fiscal year '22. The finances have been broken down by objects that are within the uniform chart of accounts. Those account strings, those numbers really mean something. They also mean something on the town side. I may have put this together a little bit differently, but when I had to send the report over to the town for the auditors, I updated it so that all of the information would be the same in the way it was communicated to both
the Board of Education and the Town Board of Finance. And thank you again for adjusting your schedules and making it such that we could do the financial report in our first meeting of the month, so that next week we can repeat the same information in a timely fashion. It just felt much more natural, so thank you again for that. You'll see a lot of highlights here. It's not meant to be an exhaustive list, but please ask any questions if you can. And I know we're getting late, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So next slide, please, John. In each slide, you're going to see the same header that's showing the original budget amount. In this case, we're talking about certified salaries, and the original budget amount was $49,095,632. Next column will be any monies that have been transferred in or out of that object area. So over the course of the year, there was $75,435 transferred out of certified salaries, leaving a year-to-date or an end-of-year expenditure that brought us a little over budget in the area of certified staff. We were overspent by $47,872. Within the certified salaries, that's mostly any certified administrator or a teacher. Also within that area were certified substitutes, and just the substitute lines collectively were $525,000 over budget. So that's the reason why we were over budget in this area. Undoubtedly, there were more call-ins. Anytime anybody had symptoms, they didn't want to risk coming in, during the COVID months. So that's the story there with certified staff. Moving to non-certified staff, similar scenario, starting the year with $11,787,000 budgeted. We did transfer out $58,000 over the course of the year, but there we had a positive balance at the end, ending with $27,872 available. And this is all staff that do not carry an educator or certified staffing certificate. Going on to fringe benefits, and again, my titles are mirroring the town titles in the report that I had to send over there. Fringe benefits include all of our health insurance, the funding for HSA, life and disability insurance, all contributions to pension, FICA and Medicare, unemployment and workers' comp, and any annuities that some of our staff may have. You know the story here. We did have a one-time positive balance in our HSA funding that accounts for most of that surplus of $1.445 million. We also had surplus in workers' compensation to the tune of about $180,000, which is just a direct reflection of any claims experience that we had there. So that's some good news. Moving on to professional services. These are monies that are used to pay for evaluation and testing of students throughout the year. Any consultants that we may have hired. You guys all met Twin Lakes and David Fiorillo, who covered between Dawn and I. So an expense such as that would be covered here. Our legal services, we heard from one of our attorneys earlier this evening. Also any negotiation services or FOIA inquiries. Sometimes we have to reach out for legal advice there. Any technical services, and some of the subscriptions that we have are paid through here. And we ended with a positive balance of $15,017 in this area. Next, for our utilities, this is just sewer, water, and septic. We were slightly under budget for water consumption, but slightly over budget for sewer. Landing to the good, $18,299 here. Story won't be the same next year, we think, right? Next is equipment repair and maintenance. These are repairs on the school level. Small equipment repairs, mostly like music department, science department, the art department have small requests for equipment repairs. Something like maybe an art kiln may carry a budget. There were smaller projects, that many of which Joe just mentioned, so I won't go through there. And then also the copier lease district-wide accounts for $286,000 of that $597,000 budget, just the copier leasing agreement. The committee did ask me to search and see if there's any room for consolidation there, so we will look at that moving forward. Next is building repairs. We were over budget in 3 areas here. We were slightly over budget for elevator service by about 20,000. Our HVAC, we were over budget by 84,000. Some of those projects Joe just talked about. And our fuel tank maintenance was over budget by 16,000. So collectively, with a almost $1.7 million budget, we fell short in this area, just over $60,000. You may also notice here down the end of the list, our funding for the Securitas, the security guards at the buildings and our SROs are paid here. You'll find them here because within that uniform chart of accounts, they're not on our payroll, it's a hired service. So even though our funding is paying the payroll for those police officers, they're on the town payroll, right? For school resource officers. So it's more of a maintenance bill in security. And so that's why it falls here. Next, for transportation services, this budget is a little over $6 million. $13,290 throughout the course of the year was transferred out. And we did land with a positive balance, a surplus of $93,491. We did go over budget in 4 areas within transportation. One was the daily contracted service, right? We paid for our magnet schools out of that, so that sent that over slightly. Our vocational and technical school transportation was over by about $130,000. Our non-public transport was over by $64,000. And of course, the fuel, right, which has skyrocketed throughout the year. We did land well under budget in special education for both in-town and out-of-town. So again, collectively, we have a surplus in transportation. Next, for our property liability, boiler and vehicle insurance, here we did very well, enough to, I called over to the town to say, how are we budgeting for this? And he didn't have a lot of information for me, but he did tell me that this used to be brokered out through Fairfield County Bank, but we now insure property through KERMA. And there was a significant savings there, and at the time of this budget development, we were likely still brokering out. So in the property line alone, we were $150,000 to the good. So when we plan for next year, hopefully we can squeeze this area a little bit and avail more funds to other areas of the budget. Next is the communications. This is the voice over IP telephone service district-wide. Even though we transferred out almost $29,000 out of this line, we were still to the good, $3,900. Advertising services. This is where our postage, our data cabling, recruitment for personnel, and any advertising for the district or any other publications is paid for. And we were right on target here. We did transfer out a small amount of $388, and we fell short $337. It was pretty right on target. Good planning there. Printing services are printing for the middle school, high school, the business office, and personnel. The lion's share of the expenditure here was actually for the adult ed program, and we did fall short $2,100 here. Food management had $65,000 in the budget line. Last year was an anomaly in food service because through federal dollars, the Connecticut State Department of Education allowed for all meals to be free district-wide. So we had little additional expenditures here. The only thing that was spent there, that $20,940, was for the services of our nutritionist for the district. It's a little bit less in the budget this year. That's $65,000 is $50,000, so hopefully that trend will continue to some degree. Next is for travel, mileage, and training. When staff travel for any professional development, or if they're required to attend meetings or conferences, or if they travel between schools with their daily assignment, their travel is reimbursed at the IRS rate. Conferences and training were definitely the lion's share of expenses here. accounting for 115,000 of that 197. So we landed there with a balance of just over $18,000. Other purchase services, we had to put the microfilming in there, but please don't worry, it's only $110, because some of our records are still maintained on that platform, so it's got to be there. There, most of the expenditures were for graduation expenses, everything graduation, think of the cords, the sashes, the videographer, the flowers, the bagpiper, to rent the WestCon facility, the waters that were provided there, and then also some leadership training, the Focused on Learning was paid through that. Tuitions is a large part of the budget. $2.821 million was budgeted for tuitions. Another $3,800 was transferred in, and we are still landing at $1,095,000 over budget. Tuition costs are for students that attend a program that is outside of Ridgefield Public Schools. That may be for an online course for credit recovery. It may be a vocational or tech ed school. It might be a magnet school for which we pay tuition. It could be a state-placed student who is placed at a different school, or special education placements that are both in and out of the state of Connecticut. In addition to our tuition expenditures being over budget, we also had anticipated $1.4 million in excess cost revenue, and we fell short there by $229,000. So there's a variety of reasons why we're over budget in that area. That is without a doubt the most volatile section of our budget. We have zero control over the needs of our students, how those needs may change over time, who might move into the district during any given year or summer, so it's almost next to impossible to plan for. For supplies and materials, these are funds for all classroom and office supplies, consumable supplies for our nurses' offices, the paper that we use throughout the district, awards that are printed for students, any supplies associated with testing and evaluations, professional development costs. Software is also funded in this area. Also supplies for cleaning and maintenance. And what threw us over budget here by almost a little over $129,000 was the addition of security cameras that were added to mostly the elementary schools. And I think that that was a combination of a response to what happened earlier in the year at Uvalde, and also the quality that the cameras. Some of them were fuzzy, we couldn't read license plates, so there was some expenditure that occurred there. Also, Dr. DeSantis talked about the ViewSonics. All of those have been updated. They're not all in yet because some of them are stuck in that supply chain, but every classroom will be updated with a backlit ViewSonic, and those old projector-style smartboards are all going to go away. This is our second and third concern for the budget moving into next year. We did have a considerable surplus in electricity last year. We had several LED lighting projects and some solar panels installed on some of our buildings that resulted in a considerable surplus for electricity. However, we were over in our fuel lines. Our heating fuel was very expensive. I think last year at this time, we were at $2.44 or 2.4477 a gallon. We're now up to 3.8055 a gallon. There's a lot of fluctuation there, but we are very concerned about the cost of electricity moving into next year and the cost of heating oil. For books, we had $515,656 budgeted. We transferred into that line an additional $109,144. We are waiting on another order to come in, so you see the encumbrances there. $19,836 is still waiting to come in, but right on target, very close to target there. We're ending with $6,300 available still. For equipment, this is subject area equipment, so some smaller items for that is related to content area. Also, technology equipment, custodial equipment, maintenance equipment, and district-wide equipment replacement. We finished the year over the budget in district-wide equipment by just under $97,000. What caused the expenditure here, when I went and drilled down into that line, as we started the school year, there were additional purchases of furniture in order to social distance at the beginning of the school year last year. So there was some extra purchasing that took place there to mitigate the spread of COVID. For membership and dues at a district-wide level, there's $79,000 budgeted, and we missed the mark here. We were over budget by $11,445, and these are memberships throughout the district. They might be subject area related. I'll give you an example: the National Council of Teachers in Mathematics. It could be CABE membership or CAPS membership. All of those types of memberships are included here. Miscellaneous, which you'll see at the end of the budget sheets, those are our fees for accompanist, which maybe we won't need because we have that awesome teacher that we just hired. For student productions, parent meetings, assemblies, and uniform allowances for custodians and maintenance, we still ended with an available $10,453. And then lastly, the town asked that we disaggregate out the funds for our athletics program. So everything athletics related is here. I pulled all of this information out using the athletics program number. It's a $1.2 million program. He did transfer out $4,000 over the course of the year. We're landing to the good, $38,454. When I drilled down in there to find out why we had surplus in athletics, we saw that we are planning for coaches at the top step level. There's some turnover there. So if an old, I don't want to say old, if a seasoned or experienced coach left us and a new one came in, we'd save a couple of $1,000s per position. And there were a couple of positions or assistant positions that were not filled during the course of the year. And so that's why we were under budget by $38,000 in athletics. So bottom line, we're going to end the year with an $824,887 surplus. Without a doubt, the savings that we had in the health insurance line and the electricity line helped us to mitigate some other deficits in other areas, but we are finishing with a pretty significant surplus. And looking into next year, we do have those three concerns. The volatility of special education is always a concern. And Joe and I are really concerned about electricity. Right now, we are at 10.69 cents per kilowatt hour, and everything that we're seeing is fluctuating between 4 and 7 and sometimes even higher. So we definitely are concerned. So we may suggest to the town, if you would like us to suggest to the town, that perhaps they do consider a set aside of some of that surplus money, just so that we don't find ourselves, not being able to fund some pretty basic expenses that we would have to do. The lights got to be on, the heat's got to be on, and we have to provide for all the students within the district. So
I believe, Jill, we will present to the Board of Finance the same presentation on September 20th.
not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow.
Yes,
So that's
September
the
20th.
Yep.
And then on the 21st, just as a FYI, we will have our, the town vote on those security projects.
Joe, last year we spent a lot of electricity running HVAC systems, windows open, and not really caring about what electricity usage looked like. What are we doing this year? How's it compare?
Same thing, nothing has changed on that front. There's been no change on the state requirements. Everything's still running the same.
Start over.
Start over. The significant part was on the heating oil. That's when we were chasing, bringing in the cold air, and trying to temper that to be at a reasonable temperature. So nothing has changed there, but, with what we saw with the energy on the electricity side, that kind of took care of what we were doing with the HVAC equipment.
Any other questions?
Just one add, I think it's, you mentioned it this morning, Jill, but I think it's important to understand when we're talking about the volatility of special ed. An example is this year, we had 3 move-ins over the summer. We had more than 3, but we had 3 move-ins over the summer. 3 of those move-ins have an outplacement already as part of their IEP. And so we've talked at length about the cost of an outplacement that could be north of $150,000 to $200,000. And so looking at the challenges that we're seeing when we can't plan or anticipate that, we don't know who's going to move in, and we certainly don't know the comprehensiveness of their needs. And so we will always plan for supporting a student in district when we're able to. But as we know, some students come with IEPs that already have an outplacement, and you know the impact of that on a budget can be pretty significant. And so when Jill was mentioning the volatility, I think that's it's a real factor for every school district, not only ours, of course, but certainly, you know, we're definitely seeing it here.
Yeah, and contextually, 2 of the 3 are residential placements. So the combination of these 3 is probably roughly about $500,000. With that said, we've also brought 6 students back into district beginning this school year. It's not a one-for-one tuition-wise, and we don't do it for the sake of doing it. We do it because it's a plan and the students are ready. But, you know, interestingly, you didn't see our transportation in or out of district being over, even though our tuition has, which is a combination of factors of some students being in residential placements and also the consolidation of runs of either students going to the same location or similar locations, which is a big focus for us last year, was to try to isolate one-off rides. So, and also things change. You know, students who are ours mid-year, suddenly they're not anymore.
Mhm.
So it's definitely an ebb and flow.
Anyone else? Should we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education. I move that the Board of Education accept the 2021-22 year-end financial report presented to the board on September 12th, 2022.
Thank you. Have a second? Sean, all those in favor? It's 8 unanimous vote. Thank you all. And we can move on to the budget status update. You want to start with the motion?
I move that the Board of Education accept the financial report ending August 31st, 2022.
Second? Amy? You want to take us into the budget update?
This one will be quite a bit shorter. So this is our snapshot taken at the end of August. We have obligated $91,724,939 of our allocated $106,600,490. That represents approximately 86% of our allocation. Our certified and non-certified salaries, last year was 59% of our budget. We've squeaked up to 60% of our budget. Our health benefit expenditures are another 15%, so collectively, 75% of that budget allocation is for wages and health insurance for our staff. That's pretty right on target and what we see out there in other districts, so pretty typical there. You'll see in the report, the one that looks like this, I'm sorry that I don't have it up on the screen, you'll see that there are surplus amounts currently showing for certified staff and non-certified staff, but at the time of this snapshot, not all of the hiring had been done. We still had a couple of open positions, so we'll see those numbers fluctuate a little bit, and then any movement throughout the year, I'll keep you apprised of that. There's an overage, if you look a little further down under non-certified athletics of $30,000 and change. There's an error. There was, in the planning last year under ATC strength and conditioning, there was 0 funding in that line, which prompted me to call over to the high school and say, what's happening? Why isn't there funding in the line? There was a decision to move that into a line called athletic trainer and facilities, and that didn't get picked up when the payrolls got turned over, so we'll do an expenditure adjustment there so that doesn't show as an overage in the months to come. For the area of transportation overall, we feel we had a strong start to the school year. Most of the bus runs have operated on time or close to on time these last couple of weeks. We do have a couple of challenge areas that we're working on, but overall, it was a good start. We've been able to consolidate 2 bus runs, one a full-size bus and another private vehicle, where we are utilizing the one van that we have on the road. We're awaiting that second van. We're hoping to have that up and operational in the October timeframe. And that's going to allow us to consolidate 2 additional routes. So right now with the one van, we have an estimated annual savings of $62,000. When the second van comes on with the routes that we have in mind, that will allow us to save an additional $93,000 annualized amount. And we do have 2 more going to join the fleet. They're on order for later this year. In the area of energy, the electric contract that we have only runs through November, so we're really keeping an eye on the prices there. We think that it would be silly to go into a multi-year contract, but we will keep you up to date on what is decided there. And we're also watching the fuel prices as well. Here in special education, as Liz and Susie just reviewed, we did have 3 students join the district without placements, but we also brought, did you say it was 6? 6 back into district, so that is going to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride that we will keep you apprised of each and every month. So everything is looking to be smooth and typical so far through August.
Any questions on the financial report? All those in favor of approving the motion, please raise your hands. It's 8 unanimous again, thank you. And last but not least, a few transfers.
So I did include the transfer sheet, and we didn't meet, so I did include both July and August. So starting at the top, there's a large transfer there for $950,000. You'll recall that it was identified that the technology supply line was, that account string was labeled as special education. So we needed to make that move. You all voted on that, and then I made that move. There are a total of 3 transfers within special education. There's one in July for $189,137, one in August for $194,030, and just under that, $29,091. These transfers were not for the purposes of expenditure of a different reason. It was an in-state tuition moving to an out-of-state tuition. So I hope it's okay that I went ahead and did those, even though that they were large, because I didn't want to hold up the contract going through, purchase order going out. You can let me know if you don't want me to do that, because I know they're large, but it was exactly what it was budgeted for, just the placement changed. And then there are 3 smaller transfers in facilities. In July, $3,196 was transferred from testing and inspections to elevator service to cover the annual service agreement. At the high school, $4,000 was transferred from equipment school-wide into security supplies. That covered the new gate at the RHS parking lot. And lastly, at the bottom in August, in facilities, $5,000 was transferred from supplementary cleaning into fire alarm services to cover repairs at the East Ridge Middle School.
Questions on transfers? I think with the size of those, I think since it's still in the same department, it's okay that it comes to us to approve afterwards.
Okay, I was hoping that, thank you.
I can see you blushing.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It was from one department to an entirely separate area, that would be different.
Right.
You have a motion?
Yep, so I move that the Board of Education approve the budget transfers presented on September 12th, 2022.
Second? Sean? All in favor? 8, unanimous again. Thank you very much.
Good record.
Next up is correspondence to the board, starting with public comment.
Would anyone wish to make a public comment at this time? I'm going to move on then to our correspondence report. We have received 19 emails since our last Board of Education meeting. 2 emails regarding COVID protocols. 1 email inquired about registration. 1 email gave feedback on the school calendar. 1 email regarded a records request. 1 email inquired about the location of Board of Ed meetings, 1 email shared feedback on the Jane Doe No More program, 2 emails shared feedback to the Board of Ed, 6 emails were operational in nature, 1 email shared feedback on the Elementary Before Care program, 1 email shared feedback on district goals, 1 email shared feedback on the Tiger Hollow ticket prices, and 1 email regarded public comment. That's it.
Thank you very much. And we have reached the end of a very long agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Liz? Will anyone second such a motion? Tina got that one. All those in favor of adjourning? It's adjourned. Thank you all.